Hi, thanks for tuning in. My name's Hussein Zaidi. I got a light this doji, but my roommate, who's also my landlord, he won't like that at all. So I'm going to just towel my door. I'll be right back. I also have this cheap Dollarama cologne that I use. It's excellent stuff. Dollarama cologne is air freshener. It's air freshener extraordinaire. So it's the lowest of the low-end colognes and the highest of the high-end air fresheners. It's the best. It's like $3 and you get like, 180 milligrams of some cool smelling stuff, yo. So you can probably tell I'm really tired. I've had a very, very long day. Slept just a few hours and all this kind of rubbish. There's actually another reason for the redness in my eyes, which you may or may not be able to see. Don't know if you can see how red they are. They're not that red, but like I didn't use any Visine. I've been battling, dear viewer, with what they call at least symptoms of bipolar disorder. Now, when I get baked, I completely lose it. I testify to the fact that my judgment is impaired, at the very least. I'm still trying to clarify for myself to what extent weed is an intoxicant. Now, the problem is that with me, weed has aberrated my thinking, right? I find that I'm overcome with such bursts of energy is the only way to describe it, and bursts of creative thought activity, bursts of physical energy, hypersexuality. I might as well tell you. I mean, I like basically hit on girls like you can't imagine. And I'll meet some girl like in front of Eaton Centre in downtown Toronto and go around back and basically we'll get it on. Basically, it sounds very bizarre, but and I'm not talking about prostitute either. Or I used to party cab in Vancouver, which is basically pedicabbing. Yeah, let me just say something about cigars. Don't put them out. I made a mistake. I put the cigar out. Now, you see how nasty it is? Cigars don't like being put out. You treat them right, they'll treat you right. It's like wine. You just sip it. You can see I blew most of that out. Now, my first love, Louisa, taught me how to smoke cigars. You hold it like a billiard cue. I was going to say snooker, but no, snooker is like this. Billiard is like that. Cigar is like this. It looks like I'm blowing it out, but all I'm doing is cooling it off. So I'll blow it out, suck some back in, keep it in my mouth, all this kind of stuff, and take it in. Try not to keep it in your mouth too long, right? Because, I mean, it is smoke after all. It's poisonous. But here's the key with cigars. Apart from the fact that they're delicious and they smell much nicer, they're much safer. I actually believe that cigars are not dangerous for you at all. Cigars like working out. When you work out, the reason this muscle is big is because I've destroyed it over the years. Like pumping iron. Though the muscle deteriorates due to the forces, the acid reflex kicks in. I mean, the acid pain is what you're looking for. You gotta get that burn and you gotta get into the burn. And you gotta get to a point where your arm fails. And that's past the burn, by the way. It's true, no pain, no gain. Now, with a cigar, what you want to do is you just want to leave it alone. If you put it out, try and do something like this, okay? Try and roll the ashes around and all this kind of stuff, but you got to be very careful stepping it out. You don't want to ruin the leaf and anything like that, right? So if you must stub it out, go like this, right? Just a nice fashion, you know, a little bit. You know, it's a bit lit. That's fine. That's just fine, right? Let's just leave that stuff alone. So I've been on Twitter again. Oh, that's my lovely wife. I was going to show you some comments, I guess, on one of the videos I put up. So I put up a video called Order Infers Design, and I simply stated what I consider to be obvious. It's obvious to me. I don't understand why people don't get it. I think they don't get it because they haven't thought about it. They're just caught up in what I'm going to talk about in this video, which is, of course, God is impossible. How can you have someone that is in 2 places at once, let alone answering 6 billion prayers at once? How can you have someone who's always been? How can you have someone who essentially is just, what is he? He's just there, right? He's just there forever, and then one day he decides to create everything, and then, like, it's like somebody, one of these atheists, like, I call them silly atheists, and I juxtapose that with saying they're super intelligent, and I'm not being facetious. They're silly because they miss just some vital stuff, which is self-evident to me. And they split hairs, and it's like, oh, there's no such thing as self-evident. Oh, there's no such thing as order. Or, oh, you're saying the universe is ordered. Prove it. What do you mean prove it? Everything's ordered. The real problem with atheism is that they think they know things. They think they know things. Anything. We don't know anything. Edison said something like, we know less than 1% of 1% of something. Einstein said, I feel like I'm a baby playing on the ripples on the shore of ocean of knowledge, right? Socrates said, the only thing I know is that I don't know. Socrates was the man. I'm going to digress here and talk about Socrates for just a brief moment. Socrates was essentially a vagrant. Victor, Alpha, Golf, Radio, or Romeo, Alpha, November, Tango. Vagrant, meaning a tramp, meaning he might have had a home and a wife, but barely kept it together. He's like one of these homeless guys that walk around talking rubbish. However, he was talking a lot of sense. He used to essentially walk around Athens talking to people. Now the real problem became that he started gaining a lot of influence among the younger generation X and Y, or whatever, Y and Z at that time. They used to listen to the guy. The Socratic method is essentially what a lot of these atheists apply brilliantly without realizing it. And I keep getting caught up on it because it's so compelling. The Socratic method is essentially as follows. If you're arguing with someone, don't restate your position again and again hoping to win him over. Rather ask and investigate that person's position. Okay, what is your position? So why do you say that? And why do you say that? And essentially that's it. The question, why do you say that, is the Socratic method. As soon as you keep going down that path, you'll eventually get to a point where the person realizes that he doesn't even know what he's talking about. It's really simple. Unless you believe in God. And then, of course, an atheist will say, well, you just plug God in at the end when you don't have an answer. Of course, that's right. That's right. And in fact, I plug him in at the beginning and in the middle. Because, as I mentioned, we don't know nothing. Now, to continue with Socrates, Athenians, okay, you'd hope and expect that they would take this national treasure of theirs who has become a figurehead throughout posterity for all civilized people and nations, okay? The birth of democracy was through his pupils, okay? So Socrates essentially was rounded up by the Athenians and put on trial and executed. And his student Plato wrote about some of this in the Republic. And Socrates was a man of God. He didn't worship pagan Zeus and all this kind of rubbish, Dionysus and, you know, Hermes, and I'm mixing Roman and Greek gods up, I know, that doesn't matter, it's all rubbish anyway. Jupiter and Mars and all this rubbish, Saturn, you know, Neptune, those are all the Roman ones. The Greek ones are essentially, Aphrodite's Greek, obviously, and then Zeus, and then there's the lady, the Zeus's main wife, obviously. Basically what people have done is created gods in their own image. I mean, stuff like that is obviously God in your own image. The thing with God is as follows. Qul huwallahu ahad. First of all, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most mercy-giving. Rahman is merciful, Rahim is merciful. And so I say merciful, mercy-giving. Now, Rahim is mercy. Rahman is mercy for everybody. There's a chapter of the Quran called Rahman. And Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most merciful, the mercy-giving, is essentially his foremost attribute. Inna rahmati wasi'at kulla shay. My mercy encompasses everything. So the first thing about him is he's merciful. He's merciful, Rahman, to everybody, and Rahim to specifically those who obey him. Of course, he's going to be more generous and kind, or whatever it is. He's going to give favors to those who obey him over those who don't, although he gives to everybody notwithstanding. People are like, oh, well, if God's so great, why he'll forgive the fact I don't believe in him? It's like the Quran says that, the Quran basically says that people have always said the same thing, and they always will say the same things. How are we going to be raised up once we're dead? Stuff like that. Like, these things are just fairy tales of people of old, and stuff like that. I get this stuff all the time. It blows my mind. That's exactly what the Quran said. I can't believe I'm on 11 minutes. What have we been talking about? What happened? I just lit my cigar like 2 minutes ago. Now it's at 11 minutes, and I got to cut this damn thing off at 15 minutes. That's just a personal preference of mine. YouTube now allows me to upload anything I like, essentially, as far as I can tell. I got a few clips that have gone into like 18 minutes over the last few days or weeks or whatever. I just hit my 300th video. I don't mind putting these things out there in the hope that somebody somewhere sometime is going to see something that clicks in their head. That's really it. And if I have some vital bit of insight, which I believe I do, or at least some cogent thoughts that are provocative in terms of stimulating some intellectual activity, I'm going to put that stuff out there. I'm trying to polish my approach. I mean, unfortunately, I've been very arrogant in the past, I think, and I need to just come off my high horse and understand that I need to be humble and approachable and, nice to people and answer my comments, and I'm trying to do all that stuff, and I'm very happy that I've been able to use Twitter successfully to drive traffic to some of these videos and interact with some of the people on there. Now, some of it's horrible, people calling me names and calling the Prophet names and denigrating the Quran, and somebody just wrote on one of my videos, Allah piss be upon his breath. Why would you say something like that? It's so ignorant. I didn't say nothing back to him. What was I going to say back to him? It's just so abhorrent to me. It's just so stupid. Like, why would you take something that's so sacred to someone and just diss it, just to insult the person, and for what? It's obviously your ego at play, right? I mean, if you insult someone, it's just like the Tao Te Ching. If you insult someone who you're debating with, it's because you don't have anything cogent to say, right? It has to be the case. Why would you insult someone if you have a chance to overcome them with logic? So, okay. Of course, God is impossible. Do you understand, Mr. Atheist, my friend? You're super intelligent, but don't think that other people haven't thought the same thing. How can there just be a God that's just floating out there? How can he, like, what? One of the atheists, they sent this picture. They love sending pictures and posters, and picture Daniel Dennett saying something, or different things like, I don't know, like religious people, for instance, say, oh, prove God doesn't exist, and then they'll have something like, oh, I have a baseball, should prove it. No, you prove I don't have one. And then they're trying to show that religious thinking is wonky, which it is a lot of the times, unfortunately. Anyway, I'm going in circles. I've thought of these things, but that's the whole concept. You see, in the face of unsurmountable evidence, you must accept something that seems impossible to you. And rather than say to myself, the universe has been around forever, and, that's just it, and there's no answers. There has to be answers. There was a cause of the universe, and the universe itself exhibits, essentially, is a manifestation of that cause. So whatever cause, however amazing the universe is, that's how amazing the cause was. Whatever ingenuity the universe displays, that's how ingenious the cause is. Our intelligence that we're so happy about, we're like, oh, show it to me and I should be able to measure it and we can understand everything. We don't know shit about shit. You don't know nothing about nothing. You understand this box? You'll be like, it's a box. This is a cigar. Cigar is a word. Then you'll be like, okay, it's tobacco. Okay, so tell me what tobacco is. Do you know what chemicals are in there? And what are those chemicals? Okay, so where did this cigar come from? Do you really know about it? Who made it? Tell me about the guy's family and tell me what's going to happen after I smoke it. Do you really know anything about anything? All you know is just the Quran says that they know of the appearances of the outer appearances of this world, essentially. That's all it is. We just know some things which are just ephemeral. They're ephemeral. They're almost ethereal. They're not really false, but they're just... Basically, to say that we see the surface of the water is about as much as you can say. To think that the surface of the water is an ocean is so stupid. There's no fish on the surface of the water. There's no coral up there. There's no plankton up there. It's just rubbish. There's nothing. You see something that looks very fancy, and the ocean is still underneath it, and silent, and deep, and vast, and full of mysteries. The most mysteries in the world that are left to be explored are in the oceans. Anyway, so I just want to say, yes, God is impossible, but God is also scientifically a necessity. So I've said this before. Logical necessity or logical impossibility, but scientific necessity, something like that. So I'll explain it to you. Everything has a cause. This cigar came from tobacco, which came from trees, which came from seeds or some such thing, right? And it keeps going back. To what? Everything keeps going back and everything's connected. So it goes back to what? It goes back to one source, one cause of everything. And then the question becomes, what caused that cause? Well, if you keep going back, it goes back forever, and that's stupid. It's called infinite regression. That's the only argument I'm familiar with, dear atheist, that I'm interested in talking about. Because it's a stupid fucking thing to say that the universe has existed forever, or the universe self-created, or the universe is just subsisting by itself. It's a stupid fucking position. It means that you haven't thought about it. Listen to me. The universe was caused. I'm not even talking about the Big Bang. We might suppose the Big Bang wasn't the beginning of the universe. The Big Bang, who knows? Maybe the universe does expand and contract. Who knows? But whatever we're aware of as objective reality, at one point did not exist. This is the real thing. It came into existence. That in itself is unscientific. Because science says that energy cannot be created or destroyed. So the scientific rules that apply to the universe do not apply to the conditions that predate the universe. Before everything, there was no time, there was no space, there was no energy, there was no matter, there was no physical laws, there was nothing. I'm going to have to stretch this into 19-20 minutes. I don't know if anyone's going to listen. I have to say I don't care if anyone's going to listen. My job... وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغ. My job is simply to proclaim this statement and these series of statements to you, to get you thinking. Atheists argue with me about the Big Bang, and I never denied it. I don't deny evolution anymore. I read the God Delusion. Heck, I wrote a rebuttal to the God Delusion. I got that shit right here. I'll show it to you. Alright, I don't have the God Delusion, but this is another book I wrote, a Shia Muslim in Vancouver. I wrote this shit like 10 years ago. I'm not interested in getting it published. It's like 450 pages if you printed it out in a book. Right? It's 450 pages. Okay, so of what? Of all this kind of stuff. I've got another book around here called the No God Delusion. I gotta go, folks. I'll talk about some of these other things, but I just want to say once again, that's the whole thing of belief in God. It is a leap of faith. And no, you can't understand anything about him. He's Ahad, which means he's alone. He's Wahid, which means that he's one, but not one that can be divided, or not one of many. He's one, he's alone. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. He doesn't give birth, and nor was he begotten. Okay? He creates, but he was not created. And when I say he creates, he is not a physical entity that gives birth. He's not subject to time or all of these things, time and change. These are symptoms of a created thing. This cup was something else one day. This cup is awesome, by the way. These are all the famous authors of the world. Like that over there is Nabokov, and you can see Walt Whitman. There's George Orwell. You know what? Like there's Tennyson is in here, and you know, like Jane Austen, I think's there. I think Fitzgerald's in here somewhere. It's a really awesome cup. I got it from Barnes and Noble. Yo. My point is this. God is the only explanation for everything. It's not only an explanation. There's no question that this universe was created by God. To me, there's no question about it. I don't understand the whole concept. The real question is, what does he want from us, and why did he create us? Those are the questions. Now, if you look at the suffering in the world and say, why does God create suffering? That is something. Or if you say something like, you know, what does he need from us? Does he need anything from us? Those are investigating what he wants from us. But if you say something like, well, you know, God can do impossible things, then can he make a camel go through the eye of a needle? That's such a stupid thing to say. You're taking two things which your mind, you know what? I'll tell you something. He can make a camel go through the eye of a needle, and the needle is going to stay the same size, and the camel's going to stay its size. But you won't be able to understand what happened. Do you accept that? You won't accept that. You'll say, oh no, that's impossible. You've created this situation which is, in your mind, the possibility of these two things happening, as in the needle being that bit small, camel being this big, and then the camel, that's the first set of conditions. And then the result of the camel passing through that seems to be, to you, it can't happen. Well, how can a universe suddenly have popped into being? You'll be like, something caused it. What could have caused it apart from God? Our intelligence that we're so happy about is a result of something else. We didn't self-create. And I'm not intelligent, whatever, or able to speak, or anything about me I didn't control. I know nothing, right? I control nothing. I even go as far as to say I am nothing. Why? Why do I say I am nothing? Well, if you ask a creative person about their creative process, they'll usually say something like Stephen King says. Like, he says something like, someone will say, where'd you get that great idea from? He'll be like, I got it from Igamu. Something like that. He came up with something. Some word, something, some space, some state of mind, some planet, some outer dimension. And he'll be like, I just came up with that just for an answer. Of course, the thing comes from, who knows where it comes from. This thought, this creative thought. Now, take away the word creative. Where do your thoughts come from, my dear viewer? They don't. Do you create your thoughts, really? Or do the thoughts occur to an entity that is aware of the occurrence of these thoughts? I'd say the latter is more apropos of what's going on. Like if I suddenly start thinking about a pencil. Right now, I just directed my mind to think of something random, and it came up with a pencil. Now, you got to understand, there's a reason that it came up with pencil. There is no random in the universe. There's no such thing as nothing, and there's no such thing as infinity. Anyhow, all of these things are simple things, but I just want to say once again, God is a scientific impossibility, but a logical necessity. That's the right way of putting it, and I'm going to try and call the video that. My hope is that you understand my purpose in this video was just simply to explain that as a believer, of course I think of these things. Of course I've thought them through, and of course I'm still investigating it. And in fact, the more I interact with these super intelligent atheists, and if you are one, please don't mind me calling you silly just because you don't agree with me. Of course I think you're silly. You think I'm an idiot too, because you think I don't see things that are self-evident too. But you just explain your situation in a different way. We're exactly in the same boat, by the way. We're both seekers of knowledge. We're both seekers of truth. And the real question is, do we follow our internalized principles? Are you honest, my dear atheist friend? Do you like helping other people out? Are you nice to people? Do you get pissed off when people get ripped off? And are you mad at the government for being so stupid? You know, that makes you just like me. I don't care if you're an atheist. I really don't. Anyway, I'm done. It's like 25 minutes. I didn't even say what I wanted to. God forgive me. I mean, I still have to finish praying. I'm so tired right now, but I thought I'd just put this out there. I don't know if anyone's going to watch this. If you do watch it and you leave a comment, I'll try and get back to you. But please be nice and don't say stupid things like, you know, fuck Muhammad and he's a pedophile. Why are you going to say that stuff? You know what? If you're a man and you're honest, you will admit that as soon as a girl reaches puberty, she becomes sexually attractive. And in Islam, yes, you are allowed to marry at the age of 9 and up, because that's when women are reach the age of puberty and maturity. It's a prop for women. Women are amazing. You guys are such idiots sometimes. Seriously. Oh, Muhammad's a pedophile, therefore I'm going to discount the fact that he's changed billions of lives, written the most read book, has created a religion that's the most followed and widely practiced. You got 4 million people gathering every year, people praying 5 times a day, fasting for 30 days in Ramadan. And oh, the guy's a pedophile by modern standards, and therefore blah, 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 blah. 12 and 13-year-olds are having sex right now in my neighborhood. I know this. Anyway, see you later. Be good. For God's sake, just put your thinking cap on or take it off and try and interact. Understand what I'm trying to say, because I'm really trying to understand what you're trying to say. I'm going to say I could be wrong. And if I am, I do want to be saved. I don't want to be deluded. I don't. See you later. Leave me a comment. Seriously, I love comments, even the bad ones.